Hey everyone, welcome from right on Door County. I'm Cathryn Cofell, a poet from Appleton, Wisconsin. And the three of us are here presenting a program on collaboration and its intersections with other poetry and other art forms. And we're going to show you a little bit through this video of our process of collaboration and then show you some of the finished products. We hope you like it.
Hi, I'm Bruce Dethlefsen. It's January 2021. I'd like to thank Right On Door County, especially Jared, for all of his work. My plan was to work on a new book of poems, and I feel like I've done a lot towards that end. I'm happy with my work, and I'm especially happy to be here with two wonderful writers.
And I'm Kubasta from Oshkosh, and I have also had a wonderful week with Cathryn and Bruce. And we just wanted to let you know that after this video where we're documenting our process and also sharing a little product at the end, we're going to share some of our poetry. We are going to share some prompts if you would like to try to do some cross-genre work, either collaborating with other poets or maybe with other art forms or maybe with other artists. So enjoy the video, but then also check maybe for some ideas and some prompts on the Right On Door County website as well. Thank you for joining us.
See you. If you're an artist, you make believe. I was thinking about the creative process and how we writers could collaborate with a mixture of visual art, spoken word, and music. For me, there is a bond, a marriage of poetry and music. Each can be enhanced by the other, and both can enhance visual art. I thought about the time just before the art is made, the poem written, the music sung, that moment between inspiration and diving into the process of creating. This is a piece called The Edge of Make-Believe. The words came first and then the tune. Holding on the edge of make-believe, hoping for a glimpse that I'll receive, the image or the word I need to write the poem I believe. Perching on the edge of make-believe, waiting at the edge of make-believe, hanging on the edge of make-believe, staring at the curtain I conceived, a membrane of uncertainty that separates the poem from me, dangling from the edge of make-believe, desperate on the edge of make-believe. If you're an artist, you make believe.
So hi, I'm Kubasta, and we are here at Right On Door County, where we are talking, Bruce and Cathryn and I are talking about collaboration with other poets, collaboration across different art forms, between genres. And so one of the projects I'm working on this week is thinking about working with text, my poems, and then some found materials, and thinking about using actual artifacts, sort of visual artifacts, and working with poems. So this is my work table for the week, and I've got a bunch of tools and a bunch of things, and I've printed out some poems, and I'm kind of experimenting with using different materials. And so one of the ideas for this was in grad school I had a professor who asked us to kind of go back and look at our poems and try to identify a word that was like our go-to word and our favorite word. And even then, the word that I identified that I used most in my poems was scar. But I think we could do this more broadly. And so what I did is I looked at some recent poems and noted how often the idea of maybe wounds or scars or things missing in terms of maybe family memories or things we try to forget sort of popped up. And so I selected and printed a bunch of poems that had to do with this idea of, this one references like a childhood memory, like falling down and, when you taste blood in your mouth because you kind of skinned your chin and in the inside of your mouth, other kinds of scar tissue from sort of memories or bad things that happen. And so then I assembled a whole bunch of materials that I thought were really fun. I'd already kind of experimented with creating literal scars in the middle of poems, sort of wetting paper and sewing them so they looked like sutures or scar tissues. And so when I printed my poems, I printed them with sort of intentional gaps. So there would be space to create that kind of visual metaphor of what the poems were already talking about. And then I also collected a bunch of materials. So I went shopping at antique stores and found these old tin types that are literally made of tin. So of course I had to bring my tin snips and things like that to work with those. I'd also found and collected, they're teeny tiny, but they're miniature cabinet cards from old sideshows that maybe show sort of instances of early spectacle and people who we thought were strange or were freaks in a way. And so I'm using those as well. I also have some, I don't know how well you can see it, but old negatives that I think are kind of ghostly and interesting in terms of the way they reference the past and history, but you can't see them clearly necessarily if they're not on a light box or they're not developed. And then one of my favorite things I have are over here. And they're, if you can kind of see them against the light, they're some old brain scans. And so I'm kind of cutting up and using those in some ways. And I like the way they reference, you know, maybe certain kinds of loss of memory and things like that. But I also think they're just kind of beautiful in the way they reference the architecture of the brain. So this is a piece I'm working on right now. And I've got the poem, and I'm going to be sewing in some scar tissue here in the poem. I've also done some sewing on the brain scans with different layers of thread that sort of reference my skin tone. And so I think I see those there. I kind of layered it up and layered it up and layered it up. And then I do have the negatives, and I put them on a lighter piece of paper so you can make out some things but not other things. This poem has references to the idea of choosing not to mother. So the actual paper I used for the back of these is Madonna and Child. So I'm just trying to use a whole bunch of like materials I had. So this is one that's in process. And I'm trying to have sort of formal elements and then some organic elements in each one. The sewing takes a lot of time, so I'm moving more slowly than I thought, and I don't know where they're going yet. And then I've got a couple over here that are, I think, sort of finished. But they were my first pieces, so they're smaller. And so this one has the sewing on the brain scan, and it's kind of subtle because it's on darker and lighter paper. It has the scar form in the middle, and we'll read some of these later. And then it has two of the tin types that are hung in the middle. And then this one, I'm sorry, these are the cabinet cards. And then this one has the tin types. And Cathryn gave me a good idea of when affixing them to kind of make the wire look like the end of a suture. So I looked up online how to make things look, or what the ends of sutures looked like, and did that. And then, and I had some old pinup cards. So I cut up the old pinup cards. Because this poem kind of talks about childhood, the transition to adulthood, and when we know we're adult in terms of sort of both desire and sexual experience. So the tin types go from childhood to women, maybe at the cusp of adulthood, to a picture of a married couple. But at the bottom you have these sort of floating forms of, I don't know, the erotics of women, maybe. So that's what I've been working on so far. And hopefully I'll get more done, and then we can read some of the poems later. Thanks for tuning in.
So I really started getting into collaboration many years ago when I went to a writing workshop with Denise Duhamel and my good friend and poet Karla Huston. Karla and I had the privilege of hearing Denise read some of her collaborative work, and we were blown away. We thought it was amazing how you could take two completely different voices and meld them into one new, unique voice. So on the long car ride home, Karla and I talked a lot about creating our own persona, and we came up with a woman named Thigh. And in that ride, we came up with a long list of possible titles and started working from there. We used lots of different creative exercises for coming up with our collaborations. Primary one being an exquisite corpse, which we can explain in the writing prompts later. But ultimately, we came out with a book called Split Personality. And Karla has recently moved to California, but about a week ago, we did a poetry reading with her, and I had the opportunity to read one of the poems with her. So we're going to share that video with you now.
My favorite collaborative project that I worked on was for many years, I wrote with Karla. We wrote a persona whose name was Thigh, and we have a book that we came out with called Split Personality. So I asked Karla if she would join me and read one of the poems out of that book. So we are going to read for you, I'm going to try to do this virtually, a poem that is called Miracle Fish. Place the cellophane fish in your palm and wait. Let him warm to you. Find your cradle, the curve of your inner nature. His actions will tell your fortune. A moving head means jealousy. A finicky tail means indifference. And so you unfold through all his stirrings.
He bucks and twists in my hand, nearly falling over himself to get me right. But every time I open either palm to this red minnow, he turns a different story. Today I'm tail over mouth, fickle. Yesterday, his fin flick called me passion. Sometimes late at night, he flips all the way and claims that I am false.
I want to know how 7 seconds and a sliver of head shot plastic know me so well when my own husband holds me all night, his whole body cloaked over mine, his whole body absolutely still.
According to the key, his silence says I am the dead one. So tell me, miracle fish, how much of me is approximately true? Which scarlet fortune do I believe?
So when I'm not collaborating with another writer, I still have collaboration on the brain. I'm always thinking of different ways of pulling from my surroundings to come up with a creative new approach to a poem. For example, while we were here, we played this board game called Weird Things Humans Search For. And one of the cards from the game had us all cracking up and made me think about some lines for a poem that I'm currently working on. Another thing I've done is I've been surfing around out on Facebook, and sometimes you can find inspiration even from comments made from a friend. And I have a poem I'm going to read that I wrote while we were here, and it's a found poem, and all the lines are lifted from the children of a friend, and those children are talking to either a magic 8-ball or they're talking to each other. And it's a series of questions. So these are all their words, not mine. But I spun the words in a different way. And this, for me, is also tying in another form of collaboration, which is thinking about current events and what's happening in your life. I struggle to write about politics, but with these times now, it just seems hard to avoid it. So while we were here, we were thinking a lot about what's been going on in Washington, D.C., turning on NPR from time to time to try to find out what's happening in the world, because we're very intentionally cut off a little bit. And then from some of what I saw in one of the videos, it inspired this combination. So here goes. Unspoken, behind the rhetoric at a joint session of Congress. Did you know lions can tiptoe like ballerinas? If you see two squirrels, does that mean they're about to wrestle? Why do people remember things that happened a long time ago, but not what just happened? How do you spell Maleficent? How many magic tricks are there in the world? Who knows what I will say next? Is homophobia when you're afraid of those little dots and they make you want to throw up? How do you spell puke? Can I hold a screwdriver and run around? Can I swear if I'm quoting a movie? Can we go home now, since this is really boring? What's UNLIKELY spell? Is it hard to steal a baby? Why don't they take down their Trump signs already? How do you spell butt cheese? Would you rather get a big spider in the mail or a box of creepy bugs? Would you rather die on the stage or all alone? Did you know we played nicely that whole time except for one tiny argument? Are you real? What state are we in? What would happen if I lose all my powers? Did you know if you say monsters to little kids, they will cry? How do you know if someone is evil? So we're down here in the basement of Right On. Bruce and I were down here scrounging around one day, just kind of checking it out to see what was down here, and there's some really fascinating stuff. But what surprised us is that we found this room full of artwork, and I saw this piece right away, and she blew me away. It's from an artist whose name is Ed Myers, and it's called The Writing Machine, which I didn't know at the time. The name is not on it here. I looked him up later. And it just prompted a free write. So I sat down here on the floor and wrote up every little detail about this painting that I could think of. And now I'm working on a piece from it. And it's not anywhere near done yet. If I get to that point, we'll be sure to share it out on the website. But I just wanted to share this as an example of how collaboration comes in so many forms, and who wouldn't want to write about something this exquisite? So one of the things I've really liked most about our time at Right On this time is the three of us here together and the amazing connections that we have all made between our work and our passions and our interests. And when Christina showed me what she was working on, one of the things she pulled out were these brain scans, these x-rays of a brain. I don't know if you can see them. And it just brought me right back to a whole series of poems I've written earlier on about my sister-in-law's brain tumor. And one of those poems also happens to be a found poem, so I thought I would share that with you now. In the end phases of a brain tumor, the person loses their ability to speak and to put the words together in meaningful ways. She thinks she's saying one thing and she's saying another. So while I was there as her caregiver, I just would jot down things that she said because they were so beautiful and sad all at once. The brain tumor speaks. Please, please, I will wait everything. The horrible man coming, have you been to him? They'd come and it would be okay, right? I need to talk to this people first thing. I remember, I sure do, 2700 Nate 32. I have to talk to him before it's cover. I saw the invention I was given. See the thing I saw? Here it is. It's all yours. It's all now. We have to give it to me. It will take it, I promise. I can still stand if you have to. I will up with you. I have koinonia for the doctor. Here it is. It's all now. I'll tell you in the pinks. Can we grapple in morning? Then we are wonderful. I will stay here. I will lay by my lay from the behind of my heart. You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. Good night, sleep glove. I live you. I live. You?
La da da dum 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 dum. La da da dum 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 dum. La dum 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 dum. La da 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 dum 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 dum. La da 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 dum 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 dum.
So with my broadsides I created this week, as I mentioned earlier, I was using some brain scans, and so you can see those up top where I did this technique that I think sort of seems like lace work or tatting, which reminds me of grandmothers who tatted. And then I have this scar sort of looking feature. Those are my little cabinet cards. And then I also had the tin types. And so Cathryn gave me a great idea with affixing the tin types to make the stitches look like the end of sutures. So those are on that poem, Cardinal Directions. And then I also have my, Bruce calls them cheesecake instead of beefcake, some of my pinup cards. And then this one is just part of a poem, which you'll hear in a moment. And it's a tin type sort of attached with lacework to the card. So these are some of my smaller ones where I kind of practiced with the techniques and sort of drew out parts of the poems, excerpts of the poems, to kind of pair them with the elements and see how they worked. So I made 3 small ones, and then I also did 2 full poem broadsides that are larger scale. Right? Terrible beauties. He said, I will greatly multiply your sorrow and your conception. In sorrow you shall bring forth children, and your desire shall be to your husband, and he shall rule over you. Parse the linking of sorrow and conception, sorrow and labor. A literal translation of Genesis 3:16 reads, toward your husband your desire. Make what you wish of the absent verb. Discern all the possible meanings of desire. He said, take this complex mess and go. this violent craving for a thing, it tramples. Earlier texts used the word turning. Your turning will be to your husband. And this simplifies the wrestling of authority and obedience with flesh less sweated. But the problem with humans is disordered desire. We have no idea what tree, what fruit, so neither know what flower. The Talmud offers options: grapevine, fig, or wheat, each with their own logic. The Midrash suggests it is not named, so the species be saved to tarnish. Maybe the flower was particularly stunning, something like a hammer orchid, or a bloom of compressed inflorescence, single-bract. And the woman, new to all things, did not know beauty's primary purpose was reproduction. Each blossom had a woman's house and a man's house and would fruit. More likely, it wasn't special to anyone but her. I loved a man once with no discernible navel, but he was no Adam. Out with new people, a woman mentions her full breast tattoo, and I ask if it covers the nipple. Our mutual friend interjects, she doesn't have nipples. Her husband's head bobs up and down. Oh, I say, oh. A magnolia blooms, line work and shading, dark center, slightly off center, where the flower's ovary would be, where the areola would be. She shows me on her phone. At my next appointment, I ask the artist about working the piloerector muscles, eager to pucker, and he says it's a little trickier. Not as difficult as other places, and he names our interiors, our sensitivities, are almost always covered, but I get caught on the inside of the navel. Some argue even as adults, our navels still house a latent structure tied to bladder or liver. How tender, that place that tied and fed us before we were us. I shudder at even the most superficial of needles denting dense flesh. Some swear by vitamin E or commercial blends like bio oil to lessen the appearance of scars. I mention this because you might want to wear sleeves everywhere, every day. You could. In certain jobs, people wear sleeves every day. Some people use tattoos to mark an overcoming, to remake the body after trauma, like mastectomy, thickened flesh as frame or inception for some new profane creation. But I've never seen it with those kinds of scars. After the fall, he asked, "Who told you that you were naked? What is it that you have done?" New to nothing, you understand desire as a burden. Ornaments and armaments. I didn't witness our friends drag you out of the damage you began. Shards of clear double pane from the front window, curved green stipple from the bottom of bottles. Most caught in the flesh of the other guy. Your jaw bloodied though, your twice broken nose. Fisher's principle refers to a 1-to-1 ratio between females and males. Yet the choosy sex selects for the future breeding success of their so-called sexy sons. Over time, a secondary sex characteristic becomes exaggerated, some showy ornament. The heritable allele passes on in sons. Daughters inherit the preference. Another scene you described to me. You shouldn't have been driving. I imagine your car in the ditch, middle dark, and your lean frame backlit by the winter light. In your hand, the unlicensed gun from the glove box, bloodied face, slit gun in your bloodied hand. Each time I see you now, my eyes trace the scar down your face. Scars aren't heritable. I don't know if reckless behavior is, whether we can map the genes where those traits wait. Maybe you have them. Me too. I know that road, the way to the little dam past the mill pond, between fish camps and hookups for vacation trailers. The county doesn't bother with speed limit signs there, only triangular yellow caution signs warn of steep curves or hidden driveways. You were on that road because I went home with someone I shouldn't have. It would have been more dangerous to go home with you. The moon that night rose impossibly large, some pungent orange just this side of spoiling. That was years before we met again, made and held eye contact. What drew me to you? Your angular chin, sharp jawline, the kind of face studies suggest women prefer when they're ovulating. The kinds of jobs you worked, scraping roadkill to deposit in a pit in the woods, collecting euthanized animals from the shelter, taking them for burning. I wanted to locate the tenderness in you. Years later, you were a sneaker male in our living room, taking time when someone else wasn't. Our evolutionary strategies may be subconscious, but that doesn't mean they don't work. You sat on couches in living rooms of so many friends, and eventually it paid off. Running wild, sexual selection can lead to extinction, like a theory about the Irish elk growing antlers so elaborate they tangled in trees and it starved. Natural selection intercedes, stopping a runaway danger. I never bred, but I break hard for eye shine at the shoulder of the road, each and every glimmer, whether alive and furred, or the twisted metal of some lost come before, caught in the stitched ditchweed. For long minutes I've waited as a family of raccoons froze and darted and froze again in the glare of headlights on some fall evening, the asphalt wet black with precipitation caught between rain and ice. The car's exhaust made a warm fog, and still the damn family of animals wouldn't move, couldn't understand danger. My safe choice asleep in the passenger seat, and he didn't wake either. Inch forward, but no sudden moves. No one else is coming this time, this particular night.
I'm out here on the deck at Ride On. We've been collaborating. I was thinking about artists, how we need artists in good times, and we really need them in bad times. This is a poem called Artists for Denise. We chase the moon too hard sometimes and stumble in the stars. That sparkle always blinds us. We trip up, tumble down, we suffocate in stardust, drown in floodlight, and still we recreate. We sing, we write, we dance, we paint. We one more time in space ourselves remake. Return, retune. Gracefully we rise again, we're artists, grateful for another dreadful chance to chase the moon.
We hope you enjoyed our video and got some great ideas. Thanks for joining us.
And we want to give one more big thank you to Jared and Lauren and all the folks at Ride On. This is more fantastic than you can imagine.
Take a look at the information at the end or on the Ride On website for more ideas and exercises. Thanks for being here. What? It's a wrap. Just a second. Come on in.
I'm sort of afraid.
I'll be out in a bit. What? It's a wrap.
Well, thank you for joining us.